Oh, you know that exact moment when the universe decides it hasn't quite finished its cruel little game with you. So it raises the stakes, throws in a few extra clowns, and conveniently hands them all your life savings? Yeah, I recently realized the universe must be on my husband's payroll, clocking serious overtime for years. The air in our supposedly cozy suburban kitchen on a crisp Thursday evening felt less like home and more like a poorly ventilated gas chamber, slowly filling with the toxic fumes of impending doom. I wasn't expecting a dramatic revelation, just a quiet night. Arthur, my husband of 10 years, or as I now affectionately call him, Exhibit A, was humming off-key while scrolling through his phone, a habit I'd long since categorized under things I pretend not to notice but secretly catalog for future reference. I was making a valiant attempt to resurrect a casserole from culinary oblivion, a task that, in hindsight, was far simpler than resurrecting my faith in humanity. Then it happened. A notification popped up on his phone, a blaring siren in the otherwise mundane hum of our evening. Normally, I'm not one to snoop. My personal philosophy has always been, what I don't know can't make me want to commit a felony. But this wasn't just any notification. It was a calendar alert, bold and unapologetic, practically screaming. Dinner celebration for Saraphina's promotion, complete with a little champagne flute emoji winking cheekily beside it. And the location? The Gilded Spoon, a notoriously upscale restaurant where our joint credit card often went to die a slow, painful death. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was a deep, almost spiritual sense of disbelief. A dinner celebration? With her and him. My brain, usually a finely tuned machine of sarcastic comebacks and passive-aggressive observations, momentarily short-circuited. It was like watching a sitcom where the main character suddenly realizes they're not the hero. They're the punchline. Apparently, I wasn't just invisible. I was transparent, permeable, possibly even made of air. Given how effortlessly I'd been erased from this grand romantic gesture. I'm Eleanor Vance, by the way. Or, as I prefer to be known now, the woman who knew too much, but never enough to avoid becoming a meme. For years, I'd been the quiet anchor in Arthur's life, the one who remembered birthdays, paid bills, and pretended his endless golf stories were fascinating. I was the beige wallpaper of his existence, functional, reliable, utterly forgettable. Arthur, bless his oblivious heart, was the kind of man who thought subtlety was a brand of expensive cheese. Handsome in a generic leading man from an animated B-movie way, with a smile capable of charming a snake and apparently, also, a corporate climber named Saraphina Dubois, Saraphina. Even the name sounded like a villain from a daytime soap. Dramatic, vaguely French, perfectly crafted for betrayal. She was Arthur's colleague, a rising star at their marketing firm, and as it turned out, an expert in other people's husbands. She wore confidence like a designer scarf and had a laugh that could shatter glass, or at least my fragile sense of marital bliss. I'd met her once at a company picnic, where she complimented my quaint homemade potato salad, while eyeing Arthur like he was the last slice of prime rib. I should have known then. My intuition, however, had clearly taken a sabbatical in Fiji, sipping cocktails and ignoring all incoming calls, as Arthur continued humming, blissfully unaware that his entire world was about to spontaneously combust. I felt a peculiar sinking sensation. It wasn't the sudden, searing hurt of betrayal, at least not yet. It felt more like the slow, dawning realization that I'd been cast in the worst reality show imaginable, and I was the only one who hadn't received the memo. The absurdity was almost laughable. There I was, carefully balancing next month's budget, while he was planning a celebratory dinner for his mistress. That level of gall deserved an award, maybe a gold medal in Olympic-grade obliviousness. My eyes slid from the calendar alert back to Arthur's face. He looked unnervingly content, as if moral compasses were optional accessories he'd never bothered to purchase. A small, dangerous smile crept across my lips. A celebration, huh? I mused aloud, my voice unnervingly calm, like the eye of a hurricane about to rip everything apart. Arthur jumped, startled, and his phone clattered against the counter. "Eleanor, you startled me. What are you mumbling about? Oh, nothing, dear, I purred, scooping up his phone and casually glancing at the screen again, the kind of casual that says, I'm admiring your meticulous planning. Dinner celebration for Saraphina's promotion. How thoughtful of you. I emphasized thoughtful with a saccharine sweetness that could curdle milk. Arthur's face, usually the poster child for bland contentment, shifted through a rapid spectrum from pale white to an alarming shade of puce. It was like watching a chameleon have an existential crisis. Eleanor, it's just a work thing, he stammered, eyes darting around the kitchen as if searching for an escape route. Perhaps a trapdoor to Narnia. A team dinner to congratulate her. A team dinner at the Gilded Spoon, just the two of you. I arched an eyebrow in silent challenge. Arthur, darling, even I know team dinners don't work like that, unless your team is just you and your very special colleague. The sarcasm was thick enough to spread on toast. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water, floundering for a believable lie. In that floundering, a tiny, mischievous idea, equal parts brilliant and unhinged, whispered into my ear. If Arthur wanted to fit Saraphina, who was I to deny her a truly unforgettable evening? An evening that would be engraved into her professional story like a painfully public tattoo. One that would make her wish she'd spent her career in a cubicle eating sad desk salads. The thought elicited a genuine, slightly unhinged smile. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about turning a personal disaster into performance art. And Eleanor Vance was about to direct the most epic, cringe-inducing show of their lives. The realization that I'd been made a fool hit me like a runaway freight train full of ironic laughter. I had thought my life was already a reality show. Turns out I'd only been in the pilot. The main season was about to drop, and I was clearly the contestant about to slip on a rogue banana peel. Arthur's attempts at damage control were predictably pathetic. He tried to spin a tale about a secret client meeting that somehow morphed into a surprise celebration for Saraphina. It's just professional courtesy, Ellie. You know how important networking is, he pleaded, his voice cracking like an insecure teenager. I just stared at him, my expression a carefully calibrated mix of disbelief and morbid fascination. Professional courtesy, Arthur? The only thing you're being courteous to is my sanity. And even that's generous. This wasn't just about Saraphina. Oh no. This was the grand finale of a decade-long symphony of being invisible. It had started subtly, like a slow leak in the ceiling. My mother-in-law, Brenda, whose default setting was passive-aggressive judgment, had always excelled at it. Eleanor, dear, your hair looks lived in, she'd say, eyes flicking to my sister-in-law, Deborah, who always looked like she'd stepped straight out of a magazine, probably one about competitive gardening. Deborah somehow always looked put together, even after wrangling the kids. It was never a direct insult, just a gentle reminder that I was the slightly crumpled, less polished version of a daughter-in-law. Arthur, of course, never defended me. His philosophy was simple. If he ignored it, maybe it would vanish. Or, more accurately, maybe I would. He was a master of the non-committal grunt, the vague nod, the art of disappearing into the background whenever family drama threatened to pierce his perfectly curated bubble of blissful ignorance. I had been the designated emotional punching bag, absorbing every microaggression and then, like a dutiful martyr, pretending it didn't sting. Oh, it's fine, I told myself. They don't mean anything by it. Turns out they did. And so did Arthur. Saraphina, the corporate siren, had merely amplified the existing hum of disregard. She wasn't just stealing my husband. She was siphoning the last fragments of my dignity, one champagne flute emoji at a time. I remembered a particularly excruciating company holiday party where she'd cornered me. "Oh, you're Arthur's wife," she'd chirped, eyes scanning me like I was an especially uninspiring piece of furniture. "He talks about you sometimes, mostly about how you handle all the domestic stuff so he can focus on his career. You're so supportive." The way she said supportive made it sound like I was a particularly sturdy coat rack. And Arthur, standing right there, just beamed, soaking up the praise for my efforts as if he'd won an award for delegation. "You know, Arthur," I said, my voice dripping with honeyed venom, I always thought family was supposed to be a team sport, but apparently in our family, I'm just the water boy while you and Saraphina are scoring all the touchdowns. He flinched. Good. And speaking of teams, I guess Saraphina is your new MVP, huh? Must be nice to have a colleague who appreciates your professional accomplishments so much they warrant a private dinner at the Gilded Spoon. He reached for my hand in a last-ditch, desperate attempt at reconciliation. I pulled away as if he were radioactive. Eleanor, please. It's not what you think. Oh, it's exactly what I think, Arthur, and probably what everyone else thinks, too. Once their imagined laughter faded, I paced the kitchen, my mind racing. For years, I'd been the one holding everything together. The one remembering your mother's bizarre dietary restrictions, making sure your shirts were ironed, pretending your creative financial maneuvers weren't going to land us in a cardboard box. And what did I get? A front-row seat to your midlife crisis starring your office paramour. The humiliation was bitter, but I was ready to chase it with a shot of pure, unadulterated chaos. My internal monologue had already begun drafting the script for the next act. I mean, honestly, the nerve. He acted like I was a houseplant. Water me occasionally, give me some indirect light, and I'll quietly photosynthesize while he enjoys life. Ellie, don't be dramatic, he mumbled, running a hand through his thinning hair. Dramatic? I scoffed, a dark, cynical laugh bubbling up that even surprised me. Arthur, this isn't drama. It's realism. The only thing more dramatic than your affair is how unimaginative you are about hiding it. A dinner for her promotion? That's like a villain autographing the murder weapon. It's almost artistically stupid. The image of smug Saraphina celebrating while utterly blind to the storm filled me with a wicked sort of glee. She was the queen bee who always got her way, and Arthur, my sweet, hopelessly dense Arthur, was her obedient drone. Well, that drone was about to be swatted. I always thought the biggest clown in our family was Uncle Jerry with his dubious Thanksgiving magic tricks, I said, tapping my chin. But you've taken the crown, Arthur. A true performance artist, juggling a wife, a mistress, and a straight face is modern engineering. He looked defeated, which was something. But defeat alone wouldn't do. I wanted public humiliation, an exquisitely awkward moment so memorably uncomfortable it became corporate folklore. And I knew exactly who could help me pull it off. The one person who held Saraphina's career, and by extension Arthur's future, in his hands. Mr. Sterling Thorne, Saraphina's boss, known for immaculate suits, a razor intellect, and zero tolerance for unprofessionalism. He cared about discretion and integrity above all, and I, Eleanor Vance, was about to introduce him to another side of his star employee. The thought of his carefully groomed eyebrows arching in judgment was almost as satisfying as the revenge itself. The plan took shape fast. A tidy, brilliantly devious scheme that even the CIA might jot down between lukewarm coffee sips and paperclip debates. Arthur, meanwhile, flailed, insisting Saraphina's promotion dinner was some top-secret morale initiative centered on gourmet dining. I nodded serenely, a smile plastered on my face while mentally checking off items on my revenge list. Step 1, contact Sterling Thorne. It wasn't as simple as clicking connect on LinkedIn. I needed an angle that would pique his interest without screaming. Your star employee is sleeping with my husband and I'm about to wreck her career. Thankfully, Arthur had the charming habit of leaving his work laptop open on the kitchen counter far too often. And while I wasn't a hacker, I was excellent at remembering passwords and navigating company directories. A few clicks, a bit of digital sleuthing, and I had Mr. Thorne's direct office line. I decided to call him the next morning. My voice, usually a soft murmur, adopted a crisp, professional edge, like a freshly starched shirt. Mr. Thorne, I began, my name is Eleanor Vance. I'm Arthur Vance's wife. I apologize for the unsolicited call, but I believe I have information that may be of professional interest regarding Saraphina Dubois' recent promotion. I paused, letting the bait hang in the air, a beat of silence, then a calm, measured reply. Ms. Vance, this is an unusual call. What exactly is the nature of this professional interest? His tone was cautious, but I caught a flicker of curiosity. Excellent. Well, Mr. Thorne, I continued, leaning into the phone. I understand Saraphina's promotion is being celebrated this Friday evening at the Gilded Spoon. Arthur mentioned he'd be attending, and I thought it might be beneficial for you to be present as well. Perhaps to offer your congratulations, or simply to observe a rather unique team-building exercise. I let unique and team-building drip with enough sarcasm to curdle milk. He was quiet for a moment. I could almost hear the gears turning in his impeccably organized mind. Are you suggesting something untoward, Ms. Vance? Oh, untoward is such a strong word, Mr. Thorne, I replied, my voice deceptively light. Let's just say I suspect there's a dynamic at play that could affect Saraphina's professional standing, and perhaps the company's reputation, if left unaddressed. As a concerned party, both personally and, shall we say, indirectly professionally, I felt obliged to inform you. I was laying it on thick, but with enough ambiguity to avoid a direct accusation. I wanted him to draw his own conclusions, preferably in public. He cleared his throat. And what would you propose, Ms. Vance? I proposed, an impish grin spreading across my face, that he join me for dinner at the Gilded Spoon this Friday. Consider it a strategic alliance. We arrive together, maybe fashionably late, and simply watch. No dramatics from me, just a quiet, dignified presence that might encourage certain individuals to reevaluate their life choices. I added, I assure you, Mr. Thorne, the entertainment value alone will be worth your time, and who knows, you might even walk away with a good story. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. A good story, you say? Very well, Ms. Vance, you've piqued my interest. Consider me intrigued. What time shall I meet you? And just like that, the trap was set. My heart pounded, a drum roll of anticipation, as I hung up the phone. It was intoxicating, this dance on the edge of controlled chaos. For years I'd been underestimated, the quiet wife who baked cookies and ironed shirts. Now I was a strategist, a puppet master tugging invisible strings. They thought I was just a wallflower, I murmured to myself. But walls have ears, and sometimes very well-stocked arsenals of passive-aggressive retribution. The rest of the week blurred into preparations. I booked a table for two near Arthur and Saraphina's reservation to guarantee the perfect vantage point. I picked out an outfit, neither flashy nor meek, something that quietly announced, I am here, I'm fabulous, and yes, I know everything. I even got my hair done. If I was going to be the star of this tragic comedy, I might as well look the part. Arthur, meanwhile, stayed stubbornly in denial, suddenly overly solicitous, bringing me flowers, offering to wash the dishes. It was almost sweet, in a nauseating sort of way. You feeling all right, Ellie? He'd ask, eyes swimming in 90% guilt and 10% genuine concern. Never better, darling, I'd reply, my smile steady. In fact, I'm feeling quite inspired. He'd nod, obviously relieved that I hadn't erupted, utterly blind to the storm simmering beneath my calm. The irony was delicious. He thought he'd pulled one over on me, that my reaction was just theatrics that would fizzle out. Oh, Arthur, you naive, simple man. You have no idea. As Friday approached, a quiet resolve settled over me. There was no seething fury, no clinging bitterness, just a cold, private satisfaction. This wasn't purely about hurting them. It was about unmasking the truth, reclaiming my story, and serving a portion of poetic justice so frigid it would numb their smug little smiles. Best of all, they'd be completely unsuspecting, too busy basking in their ill-gotten glow to notice that the champagne was about to be laced with a generous dose of reality. My inner critic was already drafting the reviews, a groundbreaking performance in the genre of husband getting his due. 5 stars. Would recommend. The Gilded Spoon lived up to its name, opulent, faintly pretentious, filled with the hushed hum of people pretending to be more consequential than they were, the kind of place where the breadsticks probably had trust funds. Arthur had booked a prime table, clearly aiming for maximum visibility for his little fete. Saraphina, glittering in something expensive and shameless, was already there, her laughter ringing a little too loudly through the dining room. Arthur looked like a Cheshire cat who'd swallowed the canary and was now savoring the aftertaste with a glass of aged wine. Mr. Sterling Thorne arrived exactly on time, GQ ready, his suit flawless, expression carefully neutral. He nodded at me, a silent acknowledgement of our quiet conspiracy. "Ready for the show, Ms. Vance?" he murmured, a wry amusement undercutting his tone. "As I'll ever be, Mr. Thorne," I replied, a mischievous spark in my eye. "Do try not to spill your popcorn." We entered not with fanfare, but with deliberate composure. Not every head turned, but the ones that mattered did. Arthur, mid-sentence and reaching for Saraphina's hand, froze. His normally bland face ballooned into cartoonish horror. Saraphina, mid-giggle, choked on her champagne. It was glorious. The silence that followed felt so dense you could slice it with a butter knife. And I was holding the steak knife. "Arthur, darling," I chimed, my voice saccharine as poisoned honey. "Fancy meeting you here. And Saraphina, congratulations on the promotion. We simply had to come and celebrate with you." I gestured toward Mr. Thorne, who offered a polite smile that never quite reached his eyes. "And look who I brought. Mr. Sterling Thorne, Saraphina's esteemed boss. He was so thrilled about your success that he insisted on joining us for a celebratory drink." Saraphina's face, usually the epitome of composed confidence, contorted in rapid succession. It was like watching a bad impressionist painting attempt to capture pure, unadulterated panic. Her eyes flitted from me to Arthur, then to Mr. Thorne, who was now observing her with an almost clinical curiosity. "Mr. Thorne, what a surprise," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know you'd be here." "Indeed, Ms. Dubois," Mr. Thorne replied, calm and resonant, cutting through the awkward silence like a finely sharpened blade. "Ms. Vance informed me of your celebration. I thought it appropriate to extend my personal congratulations and perhaps discuss some future professional developments." The way he emphasized professional made it sound like he was announcing a demotion or perhaps a very public flogging. Arthur, meanwhile, had become a statue of abject terror. He finally managed in a strained voice, "Eleanor, what are you doing?" "What am I doing, Arthur?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Why, I'm celebrating, of course. Your little secret celebration, that is." "Didn't you say it was a team dinner?" "Well, I've expanded the team. Consider it a proactive measure for corporate transparency." I smiled a wide, beatific smile that probably looked utterly unhinged to anyone else. The waiter, bless his oblivious heart, chose that precise moment to approach. "Table for two, ma'am?" "Oh, no, dear," I said, gesturing to Arthur and Saraphina's table. "We'll be joining them. It's a party." I pulled out a chair, and Mr. Thorne, with a subtle nod, took the one next to me. The entire restaurant seemed to collectively hold its breath. Saraphina was visibly sweating. "Arthur, maybe we should step outside," she whispered, desperate to escape. "Oh, no need, Saraphina," I interjected, my voice carrying just enough for nearby tables to catch. "Mr. Thorne and I are just getting comfortable. Besides, I'm sure he'd love to hear all about your promotion and the methods you used to achieve it." I winked at Mr. Thorne, who maintained his professional poker face, though I could have sworn a flicker of amusement passed through his eyes. The conversation that followed was a masterclass in situational comedy. Arthur fumbled to explain my presence. Saraphina attempted to act professional. And Mr. Thorne? He sat silently, a towering, imposing judge. I, on the other hand, was in my element, punctuating the dialogue with perfectly timed, barbed remarks. "So, Saraphina, I hear you're quite the closer at work. Must be true, considering how you managed to close in on my husband. Or Arthur, you always claim to work best under pressure. I suppose this is proof. Pressure from all sides." The climax arrived when Mr. Thorne, after several excruciating minutes, finally spoke. "Ms. Dubois," he began, his voice devoid of emotion, "I believe we need to have a serious discussion regarding professional conduct and the implications of certain extracurricular activities on one's career trajectory." My office first thing Monday morning. "And Mr. Vance, your wife has highlighted some concerning ethical lapses. We will be reviewing your position as well." The color drained from Saraphina's face, leaving her looking like a ghost who'd just seen a very angry accountant. Arthur appeared as though he might spontaneously combust. Never had a few words from a boss left so many grown adults pale, and nobody in the room was even remotely artsy. Justice, served cold with a side of corporate reprimand, was exquisite. The restaurant buzzed, whispers escalating into outright murmurs, as the fallout rippled through the elegant dining room. My work here was done. I stood, Mr. Thorne following suit. "Well, Arthur, Saraphina," I said, my voice sweet and clear. "It's been a truly enlightening evening. Do enjoy your celebration. And Saraphina, do let me know how those future professional developments pan out. I'm sure they'll be memorable." With a final triumphant smile, I turned and walked out, Mr. Thorne at my side. The sound of shattered reputations and a very public meltdown was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. The aftermath was as chaotic and satisfying as I'd hoped, like watching a poorly constructed Jenga tower finally collapse. Arthur spent the next few days alternating between furious accusations and pathetic pleas. He called me a vindictive witch, a saboteur, and my personal favorite, unnecessarily dramatic. I just laughed. "Unnecessarily dramatic, Arthur? You're the one who thought a private dinner celebrating your affair partner's promotion was a good idea. I merely provided the audience and the appropriate critical commentary. Saraphina, I learned through the grapevine, and a very chatty friend in her building, was indeed summoned to Mr. Thorne's office Monday morning. Her future professional developments involved a demotion, a significant pay cut, and a stern warning about her judgment. Her star plummeted faster than a lead balloon in a hurricane. Arthur faced the music, too. His ethical lapses earned him a formal reprimand and a very public loss of face within the company. His career, once steadily rising, now hovered in an awkward holding pattern, like a budget airline flight circling for eternity. Divorce proceedings were surprisingly swift. Arthur, stripped of bravado and mistress alike, was a shell of his former self. He attempted negotiations to save face, but I was relentless. I asked for little, just what was fair, plus a touch of extra for my emotional distress, which I calculated to be roughly equivalent to the cost of a small island. He signed the papers, pale and defeated. Never did I imagine that a signature could leave so many men looking utterly deflated. Life after Arthur and Saraphina was unexpectedly quiet, peaceful. Like finally silencing that irritating hum in the refrigerator you'd learned to live with but secretly loathed. I realized how much energy I'd wasted being invisible, the supportive background character in someone else's messy drama. Now the spotlight was mine, and for once I wasn't awkwardly holding props. I reflected on it all, sipping coffee on a quiet Sunday morning. No schedules but my own. The new normal wasn't about dramatic confrontations. It was about rediscovering myself. Being underestimated wasn't a weakness. It was a superpower. It allowed me to observe, to plan, to strike when they least expected it. The humor, the cynicism, the acidic observations weren't just coping mechanisms. They were armor, a shield against life's absurdities. I wasn't a victim. Never was. I was a woman who finally stopped being a doormat and started being a trip hazard. And honestly, it felt amazing. The pain of betrayal faded, replaced by wry amusement at the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Sometimes the best way to deal with a broken heart is to turn it into a stand-up comedy routine. In the end, family isn't about blood, shared last names, or even shared beds. It's about who doesn't just laugh at your face, but laughs at the joke you've become.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.